A mother's eyes can hide 1,000 tears. But what if the person she's protecting is the one who broke her heart?
In a quiet little town in Ohio, Mary Thompson lived in a small wooden house at the edge of a maple forest. To her neighbors, she was the kind old woman who always baked pies and smiled at everyone. But behind her smile, there was a wound she never showed. Every night, Mary would sit by the window with an envelope in her hand, an old yellowed envelope addressed to her son, Daniel. She never mailed it. She just held it like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Daniel had left home 15 years ago. He hadn't called. He hadn't written. Not even once. But Mary knew there was more to his silence than anger. That winter night, as snow fell silently outside, Mary heard the distant sound of tires on gravel. She looked out, and there, under the dim streetlight, stood a tall man in a dark coat, staring at her house. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be Daniel, or was it the man she had been hiding from all these years? Mary's breath fogged the glass as she stared through the frosted window. The man didn't move. He just stood there, as if weighing every step he was about to take. Gathering her courage, Mary opened the door just a crack. The cold night air rushed in, biting her skin. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man stepped forward, revealing a weathered face, eyes shadowed with exhaustion, and something darker, guilt. "Mrs. Thompson?" he said softly. Mary's fingers tightened around the door. "Yes?" The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small leather wallet. Inside was an old photograph. Daniel, at 19, smiling beside a car. Mary's heart pounded. "Where did you get this?" The man hesitated. "I was with your son, and I think you deserve to know the truth." Mary stepped aside, letting the man in. The warmth of the living room contrasted sharply with the bitter wind outside, but the tension in the air was colder than the snow. The man removed his coat, revealing a faded army sweatshirt. He sank into the couch as if carrying the weight of the world. "My name's Jack," he began quietly. "I served with Daniel, overseas." Mary's eyes widened. Her son had never told her much about his service, only that it was dangerous. Jack's gaze fell to the floor. "Daniel, he saved my life, more than once." Mary felt tears welling up, but something in Jack's voice stopped her. But Jack hesitated, his knuckles tightening around the photograph. "There's a reason he never came home." The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the old wall clock. Jack finally met her eyes. "Daniel didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because he was protecting you." Jack's voice was steady, but his eyes told a different story. A story of pain and guilt. "It was 2 years into our deployment," he began. "We were stationed in a remote village, one that was under constant threat from insurgents." Mary listened intently, every word pulling her deeper into a world she had never seen. "One night, intelligence came in. There was going to be an ambush. But the target wasn't us. It was you." Mary's breath caught. "Me?" Jack nodded. "They knew who Daniel was. They knew where you lived. And they wanted to hurt him by hurting you." His voice broke for the first time. "Daniel made a choice that night. One that changed everything. He volunteered for an off-record mission. No backup, no orders, just him." Mary's heart was pounding now. "Why?" she whispered. Jack met her eyes. "Because he'd rather disappear from your life than let danger find its way to your door." The night Daniel left for that mission, the sky was moonless, only the sound of the wind moving through the desert. Jack's voice grew softer. "He didn't tell anyone the full plan. He just packed his rifle, a canteen, and a photo of you." Mary felt her throat tighten. The thought of her son walking into danger with only her picture for strength made her chest ache. In the flashback, Daniel moved through narrow alleys of the village, his boots silent against the sand. Every shadow looked like an enemy, every sound a warning. He reached a small safe house at the far edge of the settlement. Inside, he found evidence, Documents, photographs, proof that the people targeting Mary were already in America. But before he could escape, the night erupted with gunfire. Jack's voice trembled. He fought like a man who had nothing to lose because he thought his life was a fair price for yours.
Jack's voice grew heavy, like each word was costing him more than breath. Daniel was outnumbered, badly. Bullets ripped through the walls around him. He knew he couldn't win, not and walk away alive. Mary's hands trembled in her lap. Jack continued. He radioed for me. His voice, it was calm, too calm. Flashback. Daniel crouched behind a crumbling wall, his face lit only by the flicker of gunfire. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the photo of Mary, and pressed it against his chest for a moment. Then he spoke into the radio. Jack, tell my mom, I'm not running from her. I'm running for her. With that, Daniel broke cover, moving fast, drawing enemy fire away from the safe house. The air was deafening with gunshots. Jack's voice cracked. He gave me the opening I needed to escape with the evidence, but he didn't make it back to the rendezvous point. The firefight ended with the sun creeping over the horizon. Jack stood in the ruins of the village, dust in the air, the sound of silence heavier than the gunfire had been. Daniel was gone, and Jack had the evidence clutched in his trembling hands. They pulled me out 2 days later, Jack said quietly. They gave me medals, called me a hero, but I knew the truth. The hero never made it home. Flashback. Jack sitting alone in a dim military tent staring at the photograph of Mary that Daniel had carried, the edges worn and stained with sand. I told myself I'd bring it to you one day. Jack's voice trembled. But every time I thought about it, I saw his face in those last moments. Years passed. Jack returned to civilian life, but the weight never lifted. Every knock on Mary's door in his imagination was either too soon or far too late, until this week, when the nightmares became too real to ignore. Mary's living room felt smaller as Jack's words hung in the air. He pulled something from his jacket, a small, weathered photograph. The edges were torn, the image faded. He carried this every day, Jack whispered. In the worst moments, this was what kept him moving. Mary's fingers shook as she took the picture. Her eyes locked on the younger version of herself, smiling, unaware of the future. Tears blurred her vision. Jack continued, voice breaking, "Your son saved lives that night, Mary. He saved my life, and he did it because he loved you more than his own tomorrow." Mary's sobs filled the room, but beneath the grief, a quiet pride began to rise. Her son had died a hero, not in medals or ceremonies, but in the hearts of those he protected. Jack reached her hand. For the first time since that desert night, he felt the weight in his chest begin to lift. Days passed after Jack's visit, but his words never left Mary's mind. She sat by the kitchen window one morning, holding Daniel's photograph, watching the sun climb over the quiet street. Mary spoke softly to the empty room. "If you gave your life to protect others, then I'll give mine to keep your story alive." That afternoon, she walked into the local community center with a cardboard box full of Daniel's letters, medals, and the dusty boots he wore in the desert. "I want to start a scholarship," she told the director, "for kids who want to serve in any way they can. Daniel's dream was to protect. I want others to carry that forward." News of her project spread quickly. Neighbors who had barely known Daniel came forward with donations and stories of their own loved ones who had served. In the quiet of her home that night, Mary lit a single candle under Daniel's picture. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was waiting for him to come home. She knew he was already here, in every life his sacrifice touched. I visited Mary again a month later. The scholarship fund was already helping its first student, a young girl who wanted to become a medic. Mary's eyes lit up when she talked about her. Daniel would have liked her, she smiled. And for a moment, I could almost see him standing beside her, grinning that same crooked grin. As I left her home that evening, the air was cool and still. I paused at the end of her walkway, looking back at the little house where so much love and so much loss
lived under one roof. I realized then that some debts can never be paid in full. Daniel had given me every day I've had since that night, and all I could give in return was to keep his name alive. So I do, every time I tell his story, every time I say his name. Daniel Thompson. He was my brother in arms, and he is the reason I'm still here.